Darius Garland is having the best start to a season he's ever had. It seems like he's matured as a player, showing patience and understanding of his role that we haven't seen before. Garland's composure down the stretch of big games has kept the Cavaliers' win streak alive, and it's one of the major differences for him as compared to previous seasons. Darius has never been the best clutch player in the NBA, despite being one of the most efficient shot creators in basketball. Late game situations were a problem for Garland, as opposing teams would look to run him off the three-point line and dare him to beat them with his interior scoring. As a result, Garland shot below 30% in clutch situations last season, going just 13 of 45 from the floor and turning the ball over 10 times in those minutes. This problem wasn't unique to last season. Garland shot just 33% and turned it over 15 times to just 22 assists the year before, and even in his All-Star season, Garland was shooting just 36% from the field during crunch time, even though he did take much better care of the ball in those minutes. And so I think to summarize Garland's struggles in the clutch would be to say two things. One, opposing teams would really hone in on his weaknesses and force him to beat them in different ways. And two, Darius often looked rattled at the end of games, almost like he was second guessing himself at every turn. And so the biggest difference here to start this current season is Garland has matured as a decision maker, and now he's taking what the defense is giving him and turning it into points one way or another. Garland is shooting 9 of 12 in crunch time with 24 points in just 20 minutes of play this season. And I'd recommend reading Jackson's story on Fear the Sword if you want more insight on Garland's maturity and Kenny Atkinson's take on this. But for this video, I want to look at a few examples of how Darius has embraced being a closer for the Cavs throughout this early season. We're going to go over all 9 of his clutch buckets, starting with this wicked rip-through move on the catch to leave Mikal Bridges in the dust against New York. Starting the season with a dominant clutch performance in Madison Square Garden was a healing experience. At least it was for me as a viewer, but I'd assume it was cathartic for Darius as well, considering his troubles there in the 2023 playoffs. This play right here is just audacious shot making as the Cavs are trying to get Brunson switched onto Garland, but the Knicks are reluctantly trying to avoid giving up that switch, so Garland decides to just make them pay with a 27-foot bomb. So far we haven't seen anything too different from the years before, because Garland of course was always capable of hitting tough shots, and he did that even in his worst clutch seasons. But a few minutes later, the Cavs set up with Garland catching on the elbow, something new that I can't say we've seen him do in years past. And the idea here is to completely clear out one side of the floor and let Garland run a two-man action with Allen. And I want to rewind the tape a little bit and focus on what happened earlier in the fourth quarter of this game, because Darius was having his way in the paint all night long against New York, and at the 6-minute mark right before clutch time officially begins being tracked, the Cavs had run a similar action with Garland on that same side of the floor. And pay attention to how Karl-Anthony Towns is dropping back to cover the rim and stop Allen from getting the ball. Because this same coverage comes back into play when the Cavs run that same action, and Garland already knows what to expect, getting straight to his spot and burying another floater without hesitation. This is Garland showing his maturity by understanding his opponent and making the right play in winning time. And just for good measure, Garland holds his own on an island and rejects Brunson on the other end to secure a victory. So the theme of this video is going to be focusing on how Garland reads the defense at the end of games. Against Milwaukee, he gets deep dribble penetration, draws in 2 defenders, and then calmly hits Allen for an assist. Compare this to that play against New York where Garland recognizes Cat is in a drop and makes the correct read to score the ball himself. This is the growth we've seen from him, and making the right reads in these clutch moments has changed everything for Garland. Now I've actually gone over Garland's job against Milwaukee in their second game, so you can watch a full breakdown here. But to quickly recap, this ties directly back to what I was just talking about in regards to making reads and punishing your opponent. This is just a masterful performance of knowing when to score and when to pass. It didn't matter what the Bucks did because Garland was dicing up every coverage they showed him. This step back three-pointer with the game on the line was nasty, and then he responds by drawing 2 defenders above the break and hitting Allen for the dagger on the very next play. But now let's look at the Cavaliers' most recent win over the Brooklyn Nets and how it was Darius Garland who helped drag them over the finish line. Right here we see the Cavs get a stop, but pay attention to this because Garland doesn't slow things down or walk the ball up the floor like Cavs of the past. Instead, he keeps his foot all the way on the gas, pressing up the court and going straight into a mid-range jumper when the Nets show him a drop. Again, this is a quick, decisive move that took just 7 seconds off the clock in a game where the Cavs were trying to claw back for a victory. A play like this is possible because Kenny Atkinson has been committed to keeping minutes down for Garland and the rest of the starting lineup, and that means DG still has the energy to push coast to coast in a late game situation, whereas in previous seasons this would likely be a grinded out possession in the half court. So on the very next play, the Cavs go to a ghost screen from Mitchell, and rather than standing back and deferring the ball to his co-star, Garland keeps hammering the Nets by splitting the defense and drawing 2 free throws. I really think the Garland from last year probably would have ran through the motions and fed Mitchell the ball coming off of this screen, but this version of Garland has been way more aggressive and understanding when his team needs him to make a play. Right here we see the benefits of that mentality. Now the Cavs have a 1-point lead and Garland's confidence is sky high as he breaks down his defender one-on-one, gets to the paint, slows himself down just enough to stay in control and draw in the help defense before adjusting his pass mid-air to hit Mobley for a dunk. Again, watch Garland read the defense right here and make the right play with the game on the line. This is the stuff we love to see. Finally, with the Cavs still up by 1 point, Garland is probing the defense, hitting Cam Thomas with a nasty hesitation here to get him leaning, then Garland breaks into the lane, realizes the Nets are staying home and showing him a drop, and so he seamlessly flows into his floater to extend the lead. One more time, this is Garland playing in full control of himself and making correct reads in high pressure situations. That's the biggest difference for him this year, and he's been one of the most effective end of game scorers in the league so far. And considering Donovan Mitchell is right next to him, ready to answer the call whenever he's needed, the Cavaliers are boasting one hell of a closing lineup.